And let's get started. So welcome everyone to our webinar on Google Earth. This is a NESA accredited webinar for those of you who are attending live, and then it will be recorded and stuck into a course in our website so that you can actually go through and complete that at any time you like and still get your hours. So yeah, a double benefit there with recorded and having access to courses. So Google Earth is definitely one of my, I think it's one of the more showy tools. I think it's really, it's almost like you're showing off when you want to use it. So if you just go to google.com/earth, you'll arrive here at what is Google Earth. And Google Earth it's kind of like a combination of Google Maps and a few other things put together. And you can jump in between this beautiful Earth down to a street view, looking at maps, satellites, all kinds of stuff. But you'll also see as we get towards the end, I'm going to show you one of the newer features that's kind of still in development for Google Earth, but there is a very easy link at the end I'll share with you if you'll be able to go to if you're interested in trying out this new bit, which is called Google Earth Studios, and I'll show you that right at the end. So to start with, once we're here, you're going to launch Earth, because launch takes up, Earth takes up a fair bit of your data processing and all that kind of stuff. So this is probably one of the ones I'm more hesitant about doing a live webinar for, to be honest, because it just uses a lot of bandwidth, but hopefully it'll be all right. Okay, so this is Google Earth. And so if I simply kind of just scroll out, you'll see the Earth zoom out. And we can have a look here. The Earth will spin for me, etc. And it's this beautiful Earth. Now, just some of the things that you can easily do to use Google Earth for your class is the thing that on the left-hand side here. I'll give you a quick navigation, introduction as well. So on the left-hand side is your little menu. So you can click this menu, it'll pop out, and you can see who I am, my email address. You can search Google Earth. There's a thing called Voyager projects. You can change your map style. You can choose whether or not you want to include photos or not. And by default, that's off. So you'll see as we go, I've got this thing called photos on. You can then also change some settings. You can give them feedback and get some help. When it's down and you haven't clicked on it, you can still quickly access search Voyager. There's this thing called I'm Feeling Lucky, which is the first thing I'm going to show you. We have projects, our different types of map styles, and then we also have this ruler setting where you can measure things using Google Earth. So if I wanted to measure the perimeter of Australia, for example, I could click that and measure the perimeter of Australia, and I can show you that in just a moment. Down here, continuing down on the left, we have add a placemark button. So when we get somewhere where we want, we can easily add a placemark, and then here we have drawing lines and making shapes, which you can do as well within Google Earth. Then over on the right, we have our go to a point, so fly to my location. You can then put people in the street. There's a 3D option, which is really cool. That's one of the things I'm going to really show you today. And then obviously you're zooming in, zooming out. A few tricks though, if you're zooming in and zooming out and you have a mouse, it's really easy just to scroll in and scroll back out. That's really simple type way, or you can use a few of your keyboard shortcuts as well, but that's the way I like to just use my mouse and zoom around. And you can see these are my photos that are on, so you can see all these photos that are appearing all over the place. So let's start by feeling lucky. So over here, I'm going to click on my dice. I'm feeling lucky. And basically it's going to take me to a place in the world that is of interest for the general population. And so here it's taken me to Dolgoprud. I don't know idea how to pronounce that, right? It's a town in Moscow, Russia. It's located 20 kilometers north of Moscow city center. And so one way that you can use this, right? Every time I click this, it's going to take me to another random location that's in Google Earth. So one really good thing that you can use this for, if you're an English teacher or anything like that, you can say, all right, kids, we're going to practice our creative writing, for example. You click the I'm feeling lucky. So all the kids will click their own I'm feeling lucky. They'll get given a specific location that's real. And then they need to go through and think about creating a scene that's based on where they land. And so the cool thing about this is that I can then zoom in on my place, and it will then give me some more information about what is actually around the place I got taken to. So I can see there's a park here that people might go and play in and explore while they're in this town. We can also have a look at a few of the other cool things about this town. So if I go here to this point of interest, so we have some information here which is from Wikipedia. I can click that and get some more information about the town from Wikipedia and what it's known for and why I was flown here. You might get a better one though. So if I click on the next one, you might say to your kids, you got 3 choices. So here I'll fly out and I'll fly back into another place. This one looks like it's a bit more scenery, a bit nicer scenery. So here we are in the mountaintops of Gruna, which is a sea, and it's a lake in Styria, in Austria. So here we could have our students work on that. And here we go, we've zoomed in now even closer to the lake itself. And now, this has got pictures. So that's the picture there. I can also click on this picture and that'll then open up the photos that are in that little pile of this lake. So that's what the lake looks like. So I can close the screen, zoom back out. I can then click on another photo and zoom in and have a look. This is what the lake looks like here. Now, one of the cool things about maps, right, is this whole street view thing. And so I don't know whether there's anywhere here for me to put a person to have a look at the street, but if I go down to my little peg man in the bottom right and I click him and drag him out, Google Earth will then tell me if there is anywhere. So there's all my points. Okay, so these are not roads, these are more kind of points to view from. And so I can take my man and put him on one of these points and drop him. And that should, it worked for me, beautiful, fly me in and put me down at a street view of this same sea. So I can now look left, and here is what I just saw that goes out to the sea. And I can rotate around and have a look at what is in this beautiful place. And so as the students are describing this scene in their creative writing or something, you can actually have a look at all these great little features, the rocks that are here, the small winding paths, the tall pine trees, etc. And they can start to include this into their story. So that's just your I'm feeling lucky button. Next, let's fly home. Okay, so I'm going to click this location. So it's going to fly to my location, provided it's been shared with Google and you'll see where I am, but that's okay. It's in my emails that I send you all the time anyway. All right, so here we are in Springwood. So that should be my location. It doesn't look quite like my location. I mustn't be sharing my location with Google at the moment, but that's all right. So it's just going to fly me to where it thinks I am, which is definitely not there, which is great. But again, I can drag my pegman out and I can have a look, the street should light up. And so I can put him on the street if I want to. The other thing I can do is I can do 3D. Now, in order to show you 3D properly, I'm actually going to go to a city because I think 3D looks way better when I go to a city. So if I click search, now here I am, I can search anything in the world, right? But of course, I'm going to go to Sydney and have a look at the Opera House. All right, and so we're going to fly out to the Sydney Opera House. And there it is. And you can see here, it's already automatically switched over to my 3D view. And we're hovering around, we're spinning around it. And it's really cool to do this because you can actually do this with your students where they get flown to a place and then they get spun around it and you get a bit of a 3D view of what's going on. Now, if I double click, okay, I can change my 3D view and move it around just with my little fingers. So I'm just grabbing and dragging it. Okay, otherwise if I just do one click, you're moving forwards, backwards, etc. But double click and I'm tilting it. And so now I can see the Sydney skyline, which is there for me. And obviously there's lots of photos. Now, if I get a bit sick of the photos, which I am getting a bit sick of right now for you, I'll just turn them off and then they're all gone. Okay, I get a bit of a cleaner view. This is a terrible picture of the Sydney Opera House though. And so if I want to, I'm going to show you in a minute how to create projects, but before we create a project, I'm actually going to show you some that are already done for you that you can navigate and have a look at and use. So if I go over here to this one, which says Voyager, and we're going to click on this. And so this is going to show me a whole bunch of what we call projects that are pre-done for you to have a look at and to see what exactly you can do with the project, right? So when we look at the project, I'm going to scroll down here. They all have these kind of headings on them of what they roughly are. Okay, so hope, sport, etc. There are some ones that are particularly education, so I can click education here. Instead, now we're looking at triangle structures. So this is some maths and engineering happening. The geometry of sustainable architecture. Keep going down, we'll actually find here's James Cook going to New Zealand. So let's click on that one because it's slightly relevant for us. And so now we get a little bit of an explanation of what this project is. We're going to follow James Cook and the Endeavour as they circumnavigate the world and explore the coast of New Zealand here. So click cast off. And here we are. So it's going to take us through this whole process of how he left and where he goes. And I can see that there's down the bottom here, there's 8 steps to what's going to be happening here. So here we are. We're starting off here. We have our introduction here to what is going on at Plymouth. So, August 1768. So we're getting a bit of a history lesson. I can scroll down. There's a few links here as well. So you can click on these and you'll get a bit more information. Okay, but then I can click read more as well, but I might just go to the next one because I don't want to spend all day going through one project. So we click next, we go from that location to the next location that they've picked, which is all the way around the other side of the world. Okay, and so here we are at Matavai Bay, or Matavai Bay, sorry, Matavai Bay, and so we're learning here about how the Endeavour stayed at Tahiti, etc. We can go next again. And so we're just going to basically go on this tour, right, of James Cook as he travels around and where he goes, and we can see the sites. And as we go here, your students, they want to look at a bit more, they can zoom in and zoom out still while they're here, okay, and have a closer look at what's going on, have a look at what the city and town, etc. is like. You can drop in your pegman, so all my roads will light up again. And so if I want to get my view of the beach and see what it was like from here, I might drop him over there and we can scroll in. And so that's what it currently looks like. And so it would have been farmland or bush when Captain Cook came, and the beach should have been there, but I can't seem to see it. Must have been probably that direction from what I can tell. Let's click next though, and so it's going to take you across through this project, right? So we're going from place to place to place that has images here, and we also get some basic information. Okay, and so there's ones that are already done for you. Here we go. It's a beautiful view of the beach. So they've taken us all the way into street view, right? So you can, in these projects, I'm going to show you how to create in just a sec. You can do things where you are hovering and spinning around at 3D and looking at the Opera House. You could go all the way into street view, where you're then looking at exactly what's on the ground and what a person's actually going to see. Or you can go and you can actually go to, where you've drawn a circle around a particular area or zone or perimeter. And so you can actually use calculations of area, for example. If you're going to do some maths with your students, you could go around and have them calculate the area of someone's backyard, go and calculate the area of the Sydney Harbour if they wanted to, go and work out the area of Australia. And it's just by drawing these lines around the outside of them, which I'll show you how to do when we create a project. So I'm going to exit this project because you've got the gist. We're just going to fly around from place to place. So we click close. And so now we want to create our own. And so I'm going to go click here and we're going to go to projects. Click on projects and we want a new project. So create a new project in Google Drive. Now that's a great thing that we've got here, that it's already in Google Drive. And so we might do like a tour of Sydney, for example. Okay, and so you might give a bit of a description, see some of the highlights of Sydney. And obviously for education, you'll have whatever it is you're going to actually do as they go through this project. Now you want to put in a feature. So in order to get to a feature that you want to add, we're going to click search, right? We're going to go back to the Sydney Opera House, because I think it's one of the features that you should go to. So we're flying out to the Sydney Opera House again. In we come. Here is the Sydney Opera House. Okay, so now we should see this little marker here that says add to project, right? So we're going to click add to project. You can call it the Sydney Opera House. We're going to add it to the project called Tour of Sydney. But because I don't like this picture, I don't like the information that's here, I'm going to click edit place. And that then gives me a whole bunch of other things that I can add. So this is the information that was given already. I'm going to click replace, so that's gone. And now I want to put my own photos in there. So I'm going to click here. I can do a Google image search for the Sydney Opera House and see what comes up. So here we have a few better images, I think, of the Sydney Opera House that we could use. So let's select that one. And of course, you probably can select, you definitely can, but let's do one at a time. Okay, so you'll select your first one, it'll stick it in there. And then you have this little bit down the bottom here. I can add another one, but let's say I actually want to add a video. So let's type in Sydney Opera House. And so now as the kids come to the Sydney Opera House, I can decide, all right, building an icon, or you might find something, obviously it's a better video of whatever it is that you actually want your students to have a look at. And so now there's a video in here as well that they can carousel through. I can probably rearrange this as well somehow if I knew how to do that. But you basically just, this is your little navigation process. And then I'm going to put some text in here, the iconic Opera House. You might provide some factual information, I don't know, history, design, why it works for music, or you might even ask your questions for your students. You might put in here, how was it built, etc., and have them do a bit more information. Now, once you've got this, you want to click preview. So this is what it's going to look like when it comes up. So I've got a little box here and I've got this arrow so I can go right, and then here's my video if the students want to watch that. And that's one type of box that's there. If I go back, I might choose, so here it's a small info box. I could choose a large info box. Okay, so if I select large and then click present, and then it shows me, it actually takes up the whole right-hand side as a large info box. Go back. Okay, so I personally like the small one. You can change the default size of the images as well that are going to get this. So let's make them large. So see, that's a bit bigger for our students. We might want this to have a house on it, or you could select here and see more icons. And you can scroll through. There are so many different icons here that you could use. Let's make it a tent, for example. We can change the color of this if you've got a color scheme for things. And that's really cool, right? So that's all in there. So we just click out of this because it's Google. It's all saved automatically. So we're going to go back. That's number one. Okay, and so we can then choose to find another location or another view, etc., to actually use for what we've got going on with our students. And so you'll see here, right, is if I click this now, the current view is actually where I'm sitting here. If I don't like that view, and I want to, for example, use a 3D view of the Sydney Opera House, okay, it's going to spin around, etc. Right, I'm going to click edit this so that when I go back to my 3D, okay, you'll see this little button here in the bottom left-hand corner that says capture this view. Okay, I might want, for example, as we're scrolling around, where I want the students to actually zoom to and stop, might have a few more things in the background here. So let's do my double click and kind of scroll it around. I want a bit of Sydney there, and maybe I also want the Harbour Bridge in it just a little bit. So it's a bit further back, but you just click capture this view, right? So clicking that, and then it's going to put all the details. It's these details down here, headings, tilts, range, etc. So you can adjust that however you like. If you want to do it manually, it's definitely easier just to capture a view, and then that's done. And then if you want to pick another location, so now let's say I want to actually come over here. I want to go to Milson's Point, and I want a street view from Milson's Point. Here we go, there's a few places I can stand. Let's go right here on the edge. So yep, beautiful, right on the edge. And so from here now, we're gonna get a slightly different view towards the city. And I'm just going to add this to my place here, which requires me to add a new feature. So capture street view, we're gonna call it Sydney from Milson's Point. That's probably not how you spell Milson's. There we go. And that's Sydney, got a low Y. All right, tour of Sydney. You can edit it. You can do what you like again, but that just puts it as the next spot. And so you can create this with multiple steps. Okay, again, if I go here, yeah, this is fairly empty. I can click edit. I can put in more photos if I want to. And so you just search for photos at Milson's Point, or if you have your own photos, that's even better. Or you can also get your students to create these. If you're doing things like camps and stuff where you're going into the bush, or you're going to go and do some amazing race type things, you can actually get your students to create these and put their own photos into Google Earth as well. And so that can be really cool. Or they can, if they're thinking about what they've done over the holidays, that first thing you might do with year 7 or something, you have them all come in, create this really quickly to show everyone what they've been doing over the holidays. And it's a really cool, easy way, but you actually get a better idea of what people are actually doing. So this is where we're at with this. You just kind of create your whole thing here and it gets done. And so eventually you can have, you can make ones that are 40 long if you really want to. And you can obviously just search anywhere you like. So you can literally, if I want to go to the Statue of Liberty, right? And I'm going to go, and it'll just fly us all the way over to the Statue of Liberty. And so if I want to use this, just add it to my project. Okay, Statue of Liberty, add it there. My tour of Sydney. I don't know why I might use that in there, but it's in there now. Oh, I don't know what this is just doing now. Stop. Maybe I clicked one of these ones to go back to Sydney. But this is what you're getting. So, and then you'll automatically get that. And of course, if you want to edit it, you go back to it, you click the edit button, and then you can edit what it all looks like, etc. Okay. So they're projects. They're really cool. I think that they are quite versatile in how they're used. So for example, you could use this if students are reading a book. You could use this to actually have the students go to the places that are mentioned in the book, if they're real places that still exist or that used to exist, and modern day versions of it. And you could actually have them travel around with the person who wrote the book. So maybe like someone's reading the diary of Anne Frank, for example, they could do that travel through Europe as she moved around. Or you could have a look at, we had the tour of Captain Cook, and you were traveling around with him. So you can do historical events. You can also have a look at some geographical things that are happening and actually take kids to actual fjords, or you can take them to different types of lakes that exist and have them analyze those lakes from different perspectives as well. So very versatile in its use. I've seen people use this even for PE, and had the kids go and do some outdoor PE stuff where they had to travel around to different locations and take photos of themselves or videos doing exercises, and then they put them into one of these kind of little projects that they make. And so the students are gathering and creating the project as the task. Now, if I wanted to measure the size of this island, I have some really cool tools here. So this is my little measuring distance tool. And so I just start clicking, and it's going to give me lines as I go around the island. So Google's going to do all the calculations for me, but it's going to give me a great idea of how big things are. Right, so perimeter in meters, the area, and you can copy this and you can paste it elsewhere, etc. But it gives you a really good idea. Like if I was, for example, going to compare the size of England to Australia, right? Kids will be not very great at making that transition, whereas if they do this and they get a specific number, they could then put that into a spreadsheet, just copy and paste it into a spreadsheet, and then they can go and have a look at Sydney, and they can try and find something that's got to be roughly the same area and that they can use as a comparison for them. And we can also, as I mentioned, change the type of map. So this is just exploring. So we can have it clean where nothing is labeled. We can put everything on it. So we now have more things that are labeled and lines and stuff. Or you can customize it as well. And so do you want clouds? Do you want places, roads, etc.? And you can change all those types of things within here. So I'm just going to keep it on explore because it's kind of the one that I like to use. Now, when it comes to your 3D, if you're not necessarily happy with, you know, the view you're getting with your 3D, etc., you know, I mentioned that you can double click and then drag around so that you actually get the view. Like maybe you want to make sure you get the actual front on view for what's going on here. You want to zoom in a little bit, etc., and then you can kind of take your spot to put it onto your project, right? But another thing you can do here, so I can actually double click this and it's going to swap with the earth, right? So I've got a big earth at the moment, and so I can click places on the earth and it'll just zoom around it. If I double click this, now it is big and the earth is small. And so now I can actually spin this around and you'll see that my view is spinning. And so that's pretty cool too. If I want to have a look at something and need to quickly move around it, I can easily use this little spinning aspect down in the bottom right hand corner. And then again, to switch it back, just double click the earth. It'll go back. And if you want to go somewhere on the earth, just double click and you fly out to wherever that is. So that's kind of the very basics of the basic Google Earth. Now, what I'm going to do right now is I'm going to jump out of this here. So we've had a look, we can search around, we can do voyages and create and utilize projects that other people have made already. We can feel lucky and just get taken to random locations. We have, you know, projects that we're creating ourselves or that maybe our students are going to create for us. We've had a look at the different types of maps and measuring things. And then here, this is just adding a place mark. So you can add a place mark onto your map. So let's say I want my kids to actually go here and there wasn't one there before. You just put the place mark in there of wherever it is. So I don't know where it was, I wasn't paying attention. But save, and then that gets added again to my tour of Sydney. And it's going to start zooming around everywhere. I can also draw lines. So if I want, for example, them to think about the size of Mexico as we're going through stuff, I can't quite see where it says Guatemala, so probably not that one. Right, and we're going around here. I'm not entirely sure. My geography needs work. Right, but that can become a place. Okay, so it's highlighted and it's a place, and I can then put that in here as well. So Mexico, not Mexico, Mexico. Click save, and so it then comes up. See how it comes up as an actual drawing that's on there, and so that's what they're going to see. All right, but we're going to leave here. I think we've covered most of this. If you want to work on this collaboratively, there are for your projects, because this is a Google Drive thing, right? So you can just click add people, right? So you'll be shown as the owner, yep, and then anyone who has access will see. Okay, so I'm going to click continue, and then you're sharing this, right? So I can get a link and everyone can access this one, or I can just add people in from my contacts, same as most things in Google. Okay, so we're sharing it with people or with groups so that they can get in as well. So it can be something that's done and then shared across. And you can even, you know, if I go into my Google Classroom, for example, this will appear in my Drive for me to add straight into my Google Classroom, which is great. All right, I'm going to jump back to this where we were at the very beginning. So where we were at the beginning is just this little thing about Earth. And so Google Earth actually has more than just the kind of basic launch of Google Earth, which is what we've just done, right? So this launching. Here it says more from Google Earth. And we're going to click this drop down. And so we have Earth Engine, Earth Studio, Earth VR, and Earth Outreach. And the ones I think are going to be most useful for you, the first one is Earth Engine. So we'll just wait for that. There we go. So here is Earth Engine. Now, the thing that I like most about Earth Engine, so this is all about data sets, and so it gathers data and it's got all these recordings of satellite and how things have changed over time as well. And so if I click on time lapse, which is probably my favorite thing about this, you then have all these different things that you can have a look at in terms of time lapse. So this is taking me straight to Colombia, and we're looking at glaciers here and how they change across the years. So we've got from 1984 up until 2018, right? And you can pause this if you don't want it to keep going, right? But the one I really like to show people, if I scroll down, there's not a lot here, but this one particularly, meandering rivers. Now, if you're a geography teacher, I think this is yeah, this is fantastic stuff. And even as a history teacher, if you think about how people move about in the world based on, you know, things like water. And so here we've got a river. So it's just going to load here, and you can see the river is moving, but you'll also see, I've clicked the wrong river. But you can see how the river actually moves here. So see how it's there, and then it's going to actually end up in the top here going around as it plays. So the river moves across the world, and so it comes up best. So here, look, we've got bushfires even from Australia. So this one I think is the best one, the one in Peru. So it gets a bit closer. It's quite a large river. And there's actually a town/city that's built on the edge here. And so you can see the water flowing here, and it moves around really nicely across this. So you can see it was coming in here to the city, and now it's not. Right? It ends up just being kind of dam-like. And so there's a change that's happened there to the flow of the river, and that's going to affect all these people who live here, right? You can have a look at the deforestation and what's happening with that over time. Let's scroll out and scroll in. This is Madagascar's deforestation. So I'm just going to watch this. Particularly, you watch this bit up here just above the river. It's really green and lush there, and then it just disappears. Yeah, and for students to be able to see that is really great. I think they're very useful tools for giving students visuals of what's been happening to our world, particularly over the last 20 years. Obviously, Google can't do this for, you know, massive amounts of time before that. But they do as well, they'll do overlaps and stuff of old maps, et cetera, onto places as well. So they're those things. There is one more thing that I want to kind of showcase to you before we then kind of do Q&A for the last bit of this webinar. So the last thing I want to show you is I want to jump back out to where we were, out of time lapses, out of the Earth engine. Right, so now we're going back to More from Earth, but this time we're going to enter the Earth Studio. And in the Earth Studio, I'm basically just going to play and show you what it does. I'm not going to walk you through how to do it. Actually, it'll take a fair bit of time, to be honest. But I think where it's going, particularly if you do anything with kids that are really into cinematography and making videos and stuff, this is really cool. So I'm going to just click play so that you can get a bit of an idea of what is happening. So just watch this. This is really cool.
U.S. Women's National Team will be celebrating their record-setting third Women's World Cup trophy in the 5 boroughs with a ticker tape parade later today in Norman Hall.
All right, so I think so that's what's there, right, for what you can do. Now, in order to do this, it says up here, try Earth Studio. When you click on that, it'll ask you to then register for it. And then once you register for it, they'll then send you a specific link that then gets you into the Google Earth Studio so that you can go through and play with it and see what you can do there. And you can see down here, it's got these kind of how-to, and so this is how they actually go about making these kind of videos. But I think, in terms of what's going forward and the kind of images that Google have here, I think it's something that if you want kids or know kids would be interested in that kind of stuff, just to enable them to be able to do that. I know it'll take them fiddling around a bit, but I think it's really cool to see where this is actually heading. Because obviously when it says try, means they're still working on it, they're still developing it to make it even better for us. But it is there for everyone to just click on and give a go. So at this point, I'm going to jump out of sharing and come back to you and hopefully answer any questions you've got and maybe show you something else if you have a specific question about what I've been doing.